All right, welcome to Young Turks, Cenk, Uygur, Francesca, Fiorentini. It feels like a Friday. So I was almost gonna drop it, and there was nothing to drop. We are off tomorrow because of New Year's Eve, so this does have a weekend feel to it. Francesca, how you doing?
I'm good. We are dropping the weight of 2021, Cenk, and I don't know about you, but I am very afraid to wish anyone a happy New Year at all. I'm just like, another year's greetings to you. Like, I don't want to say happy. I don't want to say good. I don't want to say, I'm gonna crush 2022 because I think 2022 might crush us, Cenk. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Given how 2020 went and then 2021 went, I expect nothing but good tidings out of 2022.
There may not be an insurrection.
Yeah, maybe not. We'll see how it goes. So Francesca, I got a text from Nancy Pelosi. We'll start in a second, but I got a text from Nancy Pelosi today. So maybe Dumbledore.
You're getting those texts too?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. She's two-timing us?
Yeah, I know, right? So, but she commanded me what to do. No, I'm greatly amused because Nancy Pelosi sent a text asking for money. And the reason I bring it up in this context is because she said, "Oh, we're about to win the 2022 elections, and if you chip in $15, that victory is on its way in 22." I was like, "Really?" Because it doesn't look like that. But maybe Pelosi's on to something, right? And our $15 will of course make the difference. All right. So
I just imagine you in like a text battle with just the bot being like, "No, it won't." Everyone can imagine Cenk getting into a text battle with the Nancy Pelosi bot. I feel like, and like owning this bot so hard. No,
Francesca, that's exactly what I did. I know that it's a bot, but I sent it a message anyway, just partly or not partly, completely to amuse myself. Anyways, all right, lots of stories. Let's get to it. What do you got for us, Fran?
All right, well, socialite and predator and accomplice to another socialite and predator, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell has been found guilty of 5 of 6 charges of criminal sex trafficking of minors, charges that could ultimately land her up to 65 years in prison, so effectively the rest of her life. I just want to read some reactions from one of the most high-profile victims, Virginia Giuffre, who was not called to testify, but whose testimony has led to others coming forward and has really been the impetus behind this case against both Epstein, but also Ghislaine Maxwell. She says to The Cut, "I've been dreaming of this day for the last 10 years, not knowing that it was going to come. It's a bittersweet emotion because I have been fighting for so long, and it's definitely not over. There are many more people involved with this. It doesn't stop with Maxwell, but it's definitely a relief to know that she's off the streets. And no matter how rich or how connected you are, that you can still be held accountable." All right, well, there you have it. So no matter how rich or how powerful or how well connected you are. And so interestingly, some media outlets turn to different experts, some victims, to give their thoughts about the verdict on Ghislaine Maxwell. And many have turned to Alan Dershowitz, a notorious attorney and also notorious because he was in fact named by Virginia Giuffre in her testimony. She has said that Epstein forced her to have sex with both Alan Dershowitz and Prince Andrew, an allegation that they both have denied. Another woman, Sarah Ransom, said that Epstein and Maxwell directed her to have sex with Dershowitz, which the famed attorney has also denied. If you remember, in a clip I do not want to play, Alan Dershowitz has said he doesn't know this woman, that he has a quote, perfect sex life. For some reason, he had to add that. You wonder what that entails. Probably not healthy. But let's take a look at Dershowitz's first response. This is from the BBC, right? Reputable news outlet turning to Alan Dershowitz, who had been named by a victim. This is what Dershowitz had to say.
The government was very careful who it used as witnesses. It did not use as a witness the woman who accused Prince Andrew, accused me, accused many other people, because the government didn't believe she was telling the truth. In fact, she, Virginia Giuffre, was mentioned in the trial as somebody who brought young people to Epstein for him to abuse. And so this case does nothing at all to strengthen in any way the case against Prince Andrew. Indeed, it weakens the case against Prince Andrew considerably, because the government was very selective in who it used. It used only witnesses who they believed were credible, and they deliberately didn't use the main witness, the woman who started the whole investigation, Virginia Giuffre, because ultimately they didn't believe she was telling the truth. They didn't believe that a jury would believe her, and they were right in doing so.
I'm sorry, what? Okay, guys, that was his response to hey, what do you make of this predator being found guilty for all of her horrible crimes? And then Alan Dershowitz is just like, well, it was great that they didn't call this one witness who's named me in her testimony, because that witness is bad. Dude, way to make it about yourself. Cenk, weigh in here. What is going on?
Yeah, that was, well, I was gonna say a terrible oversight, and I think it is, and you'll see BBC's reaction to this story in a second. In American media, of course, that would not be an oversight. They do that all the time. So, and I don't mean in the case of child molestation, but I mean in many other cases, they'll have people that are involved in giant industries that'll push those giant industries, and they'll never say, oh, by the way, this person's a lobbyist or works for them, etc. So for us in America, we're a little bit more used to it, but it is a particularly outrageous case to do it in. And if you watch the whole appearance, he really does nothing but smear the woman who accused them and defend himself. So it barely has a fig leaf for any kind of excuse to have him on, or what his so-called expert analysis is. He doesn't even really talk about the heart of the case. He just talks about how, man, the government did a brilliant job of not using that person who has accused me, over and over and over again. Yes. And look, so Dershowitz has been basically riding on his Harvard pedigree for his whole life. But now we've got folks who went to Stanford or were a professor at Stanford, who then are now pushing COVID conspiracy theories, and they're going on podcasts, and people are saying, well, he's a professor at Stanford, it must be true, not noting that 99.9% of all other doctors and professors and scientists disagree. And to me, Dershowitz is pretty similar to that. He's represented some of the worst people on planet Earth. Not only is he accused in this particular case, but remember, he was also Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, right? And this is really important, guys. When he represented Klaus von Bülow, OJ, Epstein, and by the way, all rich, all famous, he was not a publicly appointed lawyer. He chose to represent those people for money and fame. And so he's been riding on a credibility he hasn't deserved in decades, let alone what monstrous things he might or might not have done. And look, he's become absolutely Giuliani-esque later in his career, has now lost and shredded any ounce of credibility that he had, and he even talks like Trump. That's why he said he has a perfect sex life, like Trump had a perfect call. These guys have all become zombies. And by the way, this is another thing that people who have been accused and don't all go running to the right wing, because a lot of folks didn't do it, right? And I don't know the details of Dershowitz case, and I hope one day it does get adjudicated. But some folks, both after the fact and preemptively, if they think they're going to be credibly accused, go running into the welcoming arms of the right wing, because they know the right wing doesn't actually care about any sex crimes, child molestation. You could do anything, and as long as you call yourself right wing, they will accept you and defend you.
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to turn to a clip on Fox News, but first, the BBC did feel bad. They were like, oh, oopsies, has this not been going on for years and years? Has Dershowitz not been defaming Giuffre for like, years, right? Just defamation lawsuits back and forth between his alleged victim and himself. But no, okay, so I guess they had an oversight. So they issued this statement. They said, News Channel and BBC World, the interview with Alan Dershowitz after the Ghislaine Maxwell verdict did not meet the BBC's editorial standards, as Mr. Dershowitz was not a suitable person to interview as an impartial analyst, and we did not make the relevant background clear to our audience. We will look into how this happened. What? You didn't even push back. I mean, have him on, but ask him about it, right? He's obviously divulging a bunch of information about himself without you needing to. And as Cenk said, this is a clear, I mean, it happens all the time in American media. And in fact, Fox News also had Alan Dershowitz, again, who's been named by one of the victims of Epstein and Maxwell as someone who she was forced to have sex with. Here is how he's talking about her now on Fox. He's being asked, okay, what's your top line reactions? Again, he's making it about this woman and himself. Take a look.
One of the women testified, she was 14 or 15 years old. She was brought to Epstein for money by Virginia Giuffre, who was well over the age of consent. Virginia Giuffre then, according to the testimony at the trial, got naked, had sex with Jeffrey Epstein in order to facilitate her having sex with Epstein. So Giuffre, under the theory of the prosecution, is guilty as well. Yes, there are victims, but there are also perpetrators, and some of the people could be both victims and perpetrators. Giuffre could be a victim at one point, but then she became a perpetrator and a perjurer at another point.
Okay, I just have to say that, you do reading on this, you start to, if you're only coming into this story and you're hearing someone like Alan Dershowitz go on Fox News, go on the BBC and defame someone who was a victim, and I'm gonna play you a clip exactly in terms of how she was victimized. But you're starting to think, there are people out there who probably think, oh yeah, this woman should also be prosecuted because yes, she also brought people into the sphere. She trafficked too, so she should be prosecuted too. And I am so disgusted that someone as powerful and as influential as Alan Dershowitz is actually getting the upper hand on this story right now against someone who is a victim. And I do want to play, Cenk, before I turn to you. This is Virginia Giuffre in her own words to the Miami Herald. Remember, the Herald was very influential in breaking the Epstein story and breaking the Ghislaine Maxwell story. This is what she describes how that happened, how she was 16 and she was asked essentially and forced, right? And she was manipulated, talk about groomed, in order to get more and more young girls for both Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein. She explains how that works briefly here.
It kind of worked like a pyramid scheme. Ghislaine brought me in. I brought other girls in. Those girls brought other girls in. And no matter what, Jeffrey constantly had that open revolving door of young women, young teenagers, children, I like to call them, coming through his door for one purpose and one purpose alone.
There you go, a pyramid scheme of child sex trafficking. She was 16 when it started, she's now 38. And this is the person that Dershowitz is trying to basically smear and drag through the mud as this giant breakthrough has happened in her case.
Yeah, look, there's two layers of outrage here. One is having this guy who's accused in this case come on and smear one of the victims over and over again and imply that she's a perjurer and that she herself is the real culprit without giving the victim a chance to air her side of the story. Even if you're not sure what happened there, well, it doesn't seem quite fair, does it? That you only give a hearing to the person who's accused of being a child molester? And wait a minute, I thought the right wing was obsessed with, QAnon and the leaders and elites who are molesting children and have a child sex trafficking ring. Wait a minute, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein had a child sex trafficking ring. Why is Fox News airing and sheltering Alan Dershowitz, who's accused as part of that ring? Maybe he isn't, I don't know. And by the way, I'm really, really looking forward to that being adjudicated. So if he's right, great, he'll have his day in his court. He claims he's one of the best lawyers in the country. Can't wait to see that in civil court, criminal court, wherever that might be. And maybe he's right, I don't know. But I'd really like to see the evidence. But Fox News doesn't care about the evidence. They're like, that's our expert. Our expert is the one accused of child molestation, and that's because we think he's awesome. And the second layer of the outrage is not only are they not allowing the victim on, but they're pretending, especially the BBC in the way that they framed him. At least Fox introduced him as someone, I can't believe Fox did better than BBC, as someone who's has some interest in the case and is involved somehow. BBC introduced him as a neutral expert. No, that's ridiculous. He's gross. He's clearly one-sided, and on this side, in this case, the one side is his side. He's involved in it. And so this is not a close case. BBC with a massive error. Fox News is actually par for the course. I mean, if you're like Roy Moore or Donald Trump or Matt Gaetz or any of these right-wingers accused of sexual crimes against children, oh, you go right into the welcoming, warm arms of Fox News, and they will have you as long as you hate the libs. What you do to children is totally irrelevant. And I mentioned Donald Trump in that context, so of course the right wing is going to catch feelings. Please don't just trust us, look it up for yourself. Donald Trump's exact quote, which I read yesterday, you saw on my Twitter handle, about how Jeffrey Epstein was a, quote, terrific guy, that they'd known each other and partied together for 15 years. And there's tons of pictures of them hanging out together. Also pictures of Donald Trump with Ghislaine Maxwell. And he said, well, Jeffrey likes him young. He knew, at a bare minimum, Trump always knew. And then after everything was exposed and Epstein went to jail and then committed suicide. And by the way, every right winger and every QAnon goes like, oh yeah, which Democrat killed him? You know, the president at the time was Donald J. Trump, who was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know if they were best friends, excellent friends, but Trump admits they were great friends, right? And Trump knew. Look, I don't know what Clinton did. I don't know what Trump did. I don't know what Dershowitz did. But they all knew and were great friends with Epstein and Maxwell. That's a fact. And so the right wing doesn't seem to care at all. And when after Maxwell was arrested, even after Epstein's so-called suicide, Trump said that he wished her well. And if you thought that was now right-wingers are claiming that was a joke. Hilarious, you're the joke. We showed it to you 2 different occasions. A reporter asked him, really? She's one of the worst accused child molesters in American history. And he's like, yeah, I wish her well. Yeah, that's because they're really good friends. Stop looking at pizza shop basements and start looking, don't look down, look up. Look up.
He was on the flight logs. Look up at the little private plane they were on together. It is disgusting. The last thing I wanted to say is it is such a bad look if the person who you've associated with, who's longtime partner, you defended, Jeffrey Epstein, was just found guilty on 5 of 6 charges, largely based on this woman's testimony. Yes, she didn't testify, right? Maybe she didn't testify. The prosecution didn't see her as the best witness. They had plenty of witnesses, sadly, in this case to go on. So they had other women testify as to all of Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes. But then to be like, oh, all the rest of these people are telling the truth, and this one woman, yeah, she's lying. Excuse me, come again, how does that, aren't you the attorney? How does that hold up at all? Wouldn't you then be saying that the jury was completely wrong in this case? Then wouldn't you be on Ghislaine Maxwell's side? Just come out with it, say that you're on her side.
Yeah, look, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna read the quote one more time because I just want people to understand the degree to which Donald Trump definitely knew that Epstein was with underage girls, okay? Don't get me wrong, they say, oh yeah, what about Bill Clinton? Yeah, absolutely. You know, Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. All of these elites were best friends and very likely they all knew. Now here's Trump admitting it. He said to New York Magazine at the time, I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. This is a direct quote. He's a lot of fun to be with. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. Many of them are on the younger side and he's a terrific guy. That's so much fun to be with. So right wingers, you should maybe ask your leader, what kind of fun did he have with Jeffrey Epstein?
It's such a projection. It's amazing. We gotta switch gears for a little bit. Oh, we gotta break.
All right, we're gonna
okay,
take a quick
Cenk, break us.
Yes, and when we, by the way, during the social break, for those of you who get the social break, I'm gonna read you the Nancy Pelosi text because we're gonna have fun with it, okay? But meanwhile, there's a lot of surprises coming up, including surprise billing and surprise legislation about surprise billing. So we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Francesca with you guys. It's the holiday spirit over at Twitch. Elder Mind Pulse gifted 20 subs. D. Cashmere gifted 5. Leftover Zach gifted a sub. Kathleen gave 2,022 bits. Get it? Happy New Year, TYT fam. She wrote in, but I want to give Opie Mom's quote because she gifted 100 subs, which is fantastic. Check us out on twitch.tv/TYT, which, by the way, we have a New Year's stream. Brett Ehrlich and Brooke Marks are doing it tomorrow night. Obviously, that's when New Year's is, at twitch.tv/TYT. Tune in at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. Oh my God, there's a $120 giveaway. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Oh man.
Anyway, back to Opie Mom, who's a champion and a hero. She wrote in, "Thank you for creating such an amazing community for us. I'm so grateful I found TYT. Love you all." Opie Mom, right back at you. You're a huge and amazing part of that community. All right, Fran.
So, all right, well, we all know that anti-vaxxers can be real vile in public, but how are they like when they're alone, when they're together and just the 2 of them or the 20 of them or however many people? Well, now we have some insight thanks to someone who took some video at an anti-vax rally in New York and captured a conversation between 2 demonstrators. Independent reporter Talia Jane shared a video of one Stephanie Denaro. The name might sound familiar, just hang on, who appeared slightly out of breath as she attends the rally in New York. So let's just, let's eavesdrop on that convo. How'd it go? What was it like?
Danny's in the hospital with COVID.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have it too.
Hospital? Why is he in the hospital?
Because he didn't go to the doctor and just get it taken care of. Like, he's dying now.
Why would he be in the hospital?
He's an idiot.
He needs to take ivermectin.
Yeah, right? I don't
I
know.
can get some.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. I'll call this woman tonight and see if she gets some.
Oh, okay.
And vitamin D and zinc.
Oh,
He
okay.
has to take it right away. They don't have to know about it. I don't know why he's in the hospital.
Okay.
What, does he feel sick?
It sounds like he has pneumonia when he's coughing. His lungs are so bad.
I don't know, my lungs got bad for a while. I just stayed home and went to sleep.
Yeah, that's what he was doing, but he wasn't getting any better.
Oh, really? Wow, I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay, so there's a lot happening in that video. For those of you who didn't catch it, and thanks to JR for throwing subs on that, there was a discussion about a friend of hers named Danny with another fellow protester. They said, yep, Danny's got COVID. He's in the hospital. And then there's a little bit of a why? Why is he in the hospital? Well, he's got COVID. It's a little bit of a who's on first conversation happening. Because he's got COVID and we're all anti-vaxxers. Then his friend is suggesting ivermectin. He's suggesting taking zinc. But Cenk, did you catch the beginning when she says, yeah, Danny's got COVID, he's dying. I have COVID too. Anyway, what's for lunch? Doopy-doopy-doo. Just.
Yeah. No.
What is going on?
No, Franny, I went back and double checked the article. They're in an anti-vaccine protest. And so presumably none of them are vaccinated unless some of them are cheating, which probably did happen. And she's walking around casually with no mask and say, oh yeah, I got COVID, yeah. And none of you are vaccinated, okay. I mean, they're playing with each other's lives. And look, it's hard not to call them unintelligent, but I'm gonna break that down in a second. But let's talk about the unintelligent things they said as opposed to who they are as people, right? So he's got pneumonia-like symptoms. He's in really bad shape, coughing like crazy. Well, then might you want to take it seriously? And then the other guy jumps in, oh, no, but if you give him horse medicine, everything's gonna be. Look, I know ivermectin is also for humans. Who cares? It isn't for coronavirus, it's for dewormer. He does, to the best of our knowledge, Danny doesn't have tapeworm. So but they really believe it. They really believe it. That guy could die because he didn't take the right precautions before or apparently after. And even she thinks he's an idiot because he didn't take care of it right. But the other guy that's off camera, he thinks, well, when I got COVID, because they're anti-vax, they almost all got COVID at some point or are going to. He's like, oh, I just slept in and everything was fine. But this is what the right wing is like literally and clinically incapable of understanding. What happened to you doesn't happen to everyone. You are not the only person on the planet. Different people have different reactions. So just because you didn't die from COVID doesn't mean no one dies from COVID. That doesn't mean that all the hospitals and the doctors and the scientists and the morgues are all lying. Those people didn't actually die just because you didn't die from COVID. So look, I guess, Francesca, I'll say this. Look, I've been wrestling with this for now probably over a year, right? What do you call these folks? Do you call them anything? I mean, we have to deal with them every single day, right? So I landed on their detached from reality. Putting aside intelligence, and by the way, and it does not have to do with intelligence. I know that I'm going to go back and I'm going to slip up and I'm going to call folks stupid again because it's just their actions are so stupid it's impossible to resist. But look, to be fair, I mean, mainstream media says that a brutal system that allows people to die because they haven't paid a private corporation enough money for health insurance or they didn't have enough money for the deductible. Mainstream media says that's a great and wonderful and just system. The planet is going to be destroyed by the climate crisis and nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it. I mean, we're all nuts. We're all detached from reality. And there's the mainstream media also has a cult and they're completely detached from reality. They think politicians, let alone all those policy issues, politicians taking millions of dollars in bribes will not corrupt them. That's more detached from reality than anything we just saw there. So, but the bottom line is, if you live in that world, you're in for a very specific, you're not in like the mainstream media has big picture, creates big picture problems, but this one affects your own life. And I'm here to tell you that 2 + 2 = 4. And if you have COVID and you don't wear masks, you will spread it. If you're not vaccinated, you will get more sick and you're taking a percentage chance with your life.
Cenk, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were gonna bring up math and I just feel a little triggered. So next time, could you just warn me when you're gonna do basic addition? That would really help me, because I don't choose to believe that. I choose to believe a different set of realities because I live in the upside down, and ivermectin tastes pretty good, dude. You just put it on some toast. I'm gonna butt in because I have to tell you more about Stephanie Denaro. She seems like the most callous person you could possibly imagine. And yet, that is not the most callous she's been on camera. In fact, you might remember her for being Bakery Karen or Coffee Karen back in New York almost a year ago, or maybe even longer. This is what she was doing a year ago in terms of her responsibility to wear masks. This is how she flipped out. You might recognize it. Take a look.
I just want to order some bagels.
If you want to serve her. If not, let you go.
Take her out.
Okay, so ma'am, hello, ma'am. He's not gonna serve it, so please leave.
Why? Because he's a bitch.
Excuse me.
Oh, that's what he is.
Hello, now you need to go.
That's what he is.
Excuse me, ma'am. Hello, ma'am, you need to go.
You heard it.
Let me.
All right, there she was, just spewing a bunch of expletives and racial slurs at workers in a coffee shop. That was obviously a while ago, but I'm sure you guys remember it. So this is not her first rodeo, people. She is pretty terrible. She also, remember she claimed that she could say the N-word because her baby daddies are black. She said, all my children have a black father. And that's a term I've heard them use all my life. Oh my God. So of course, these are the kinds of people who are marching in New York during a massive surge of Omicron. Because why? Because they can't go get like tapas or whatever they want to do. And their places are closing down because staff members are literally falling ill and cannot run, cannot actually staff stores anymore and restaurants. This is my favorite quote from her. She once told the papers that she thought COVID-19 was a hoax to convince people to use absentee ballots and steal the election from former President Donald Trump, because that's apparently how absentee ballots now work here in the Upside Down, as we heard from Rand Paul earlier in the week, who's like, that's what ballot harvesting is. You just flood a bunch of absentee ballots, people vote, and then you count them.
Yeah.
So here we are.
So Francesca, the minute you say, hey, maybe we should have a tiny bit of empathy for these folks who've been brainwashed into a cult, they go and use the N-word. I mean, she used the actual word to a black person. It was so over the top. Of course we have to bleep it, but she's just, when we have empathy for them, they never return it in kind, right? They have no empathy for us at all, or almost for any other human being. I got coronavirus, I'm gonna talk to you right in front of your face with no mask on, because if you get sick and die, I don't care, you're not me, okay? I'll call you the N-word right to your face and insult you like that. And even if it's true about her lovers or whatever the hell she claims, right? They don't know that. They just think you're horribly insulting them, even if that was an excuse, which it most certainly is not. So it's so callous, and I'm so sick of the right wing and their lack of any human decency and empathy. And the minute there's a study that shows, hey, the Omicron, we already know it's less lethal, but if you're vaccinated, this is now the dominant strain. It's probably the only thing you're gonna get, and it's definitely not gonna kill you. If there's a study like that, it comes out, I'm gone. I'm done with these right wing. They can go get themselves sick. They can go be unvaccinated, they could, etc. I know they're clogging up the hospitals, but we're gonna do a different segment on that, how they should move to the back of the line so that rational people don't die because of their mistakes. So, and Francesca, there isn't anything they wouldn't politicize. I mean, there's the movie Don't Look Up. Now CNN is running op-eds about how if you say climate change is real, you're politicizing climate change. And in that case, in regards to the movie, they were saying that they were politicizing the meteor. No, the meteor was coming in the movie. That's the context. In our case, climate crisis is real. Coronavirus is real. When they say it isn't, they are politicizing it. There I am again, you morons. But in that case, I'm referring to the mainstream media. So when I say 2 + 2 = 4, I am not politicizing math. I am doing math. When you say it isn't, you're politicizing math. So I try to explain simple concepts for a living.
You do a great job. You've done a great job. All right, let's turn to, let's not turn anything. I'm turning back to Cenk. What's up?
All right, no, we gotta go, we gotta take another break. Stay right here though, that surprise building story, which is enraging, and I think one day could lead to revolution, is coming up next. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Francesca with you guys. I'm gonna read one quick super chat here for you guys. Chaplain Fred, AKA Prayer Dragon, said, Cenk, thank you for the shout out yesterday on Turks and Jerks. Happy New Year's and blessings to TYT. Thank you. I did that shout out because look, they really, the members are us. You are TYT. And I love that. I wouldn't have it any other way. The rest of the media looks down their nose at their audience and tries to figure out how to manipulate them, etc. We do the show with you guys. So join buttons below or tyt.com/join. Come join the family. All right, Francesca, what's next?
All right, well, there is a small but critical victory for Americans and our otherwise very broken healthcare system. There's a small little glimmer starting January 1st. 2022, the new year, a consumer protection law called the No Surprises Act is coming into effect. That bans most surprise billing that insurance companies and others call balance billing. It's basically when there's all kinds of negotiating behind the scenes between different hospitals, between different insurance providers, between different in-care and out-of-care networks, and they basically shove the bill your way. And that is not going to be allowed going forward. Even when let's say you're never gonna get that bill that says, oh my gosh, you use an out-of-network service, and you were like, what are you talking about? I am using the hospital I always use. This is gonna help 10 million Americans, and it will apply to 10 million surprise bills a year. That's how many surprise bills there have been. So let's read more about the law. Congress approved it actually in late 2020 after a multitude of delays. You can only imagine the lobbyists losing their minds over this. Protects patients when they receive emergency care or scheduled treatment from doctors and hospitals that are not in their insurance networks and that they did not choose. Oftentimes you kind of just get shunted and given somebody. Consumers will be responsible only for their in-network cost sharing in these situations. So again, before that was always the burden of the consumer. It's not gonna be that burden. So as of Jan 1, patients shouldn't receive a surprise medical bill from out-of-network provider in the following scenarios: when you receive emergency care, when you receive care in an in-network health facility, or when you're transported by an air ambulance, so airplane or helicopter. Now, I just wanna note that because sadly, this bill does not cover when you are transported by a ground ambulance. In other words, the majority of emergency transportation, which are ground ambulances. So let's go to graphic number 6. The No Surprises Act also won't cover ground ambulance transportation, even though you have almost no control over who provides the service. That means you still might receive an out-of-network balance for that ambulance. I wanna go back one and say there's a couple other things it doesn't apply to. So addiction treatment facilities, birthing centers, clinics, hospice, nursing homes, or urgent care centers that are not licensed to provide emergency services do not apply. But 10 million less bills that you didn't need, that's huge. I am scratching my head as to how this is going forward. And my God, is the private insurance company going to lose their minds when it actually starts to help people?
Yeah. Well, I have a theory on that because anytime a bill that actually helps the American people passes, it is a massive exception to the rule of corruption in America. And so you have to it's important to diagnose it, like what went right here? How could this have possibly passed? Almost nothing that helps American people passes through Congress. And by the way, also note, this passed a year ago under Trump, right? Both Democrats and Republicans passed it. And he signed it into law. It's only going into effect now. So the reason, my theory is, this was gonna lead to an actual revolution because everyone that got a surprise bill, which it was piling up, like a higher and higher percentage of Americans were getting hit with a surprise bill. Everyone that I talked to was in an absolute rage. So think about this, they still have these giant loopholes in this bill. So ambulances, for example. Well, if you're in the middle of an emergency and you're having a heart attack, are you gonna ask if the ambulance is in network? Are you gonna even think about that? That's absurd, right? And then and are you gonna negotiate? No, I don't want an out-of-network ambulance. Can you send me an ambulance from 28 miles away that's in network? No, that's still not addressed in this bill. So you take an ambulance and you're playing with your financial life because they send you bills for $2,000, $4,000, $8,000. It's just literal highway robbery. You're getting robbed on the highway on the way to the hospital. And this bill does not cover non-emergencies at all. So you're gonna go in, let's say you're taking a CAT scan. It's like, we sent the lab results to an out-of-network facility. We never told you, you never asked, you never had any opportunities. Here's your bill for $21,000. Well, they don't have but what the powerful people don't understand is they then think, well, I would just call my friend who's a senator and I would have it just because that's an outrage. I'll have it taken care of, right? No, 99.9% of people don't have a senator friend to call. They're screwed. They're gonna lose their house. They're gonna be homeless. So, no, they're playing with our lives. And when you see stuff like this, I don't think it's at all a surprise that there was a riot against our Capitol. Okay, now people might find that controversial, but I think the right wing lost its mind because of corporate rule and the corporate media that protects it. Like, guys, think about it, man. Yeah, okay, the Trump guys are in a cult, but if you listen to mainstream media, are you sure you're not in a cult? Because mainstream media says, oh yeah, there's surprise bills where they ruin your life on a thing that you couldn't possibly control at your weakest, most desperate moment. That makes sense, they say. Medicare for all, universal health care coverage, which every other developed nation has. They say that does not make sense. No, you must pay these random ransoms to these insurance corporations. Otherwise, we're going to let you die. That is not normal. You'd have to be insane to believe that, and that is mainstream media.
Yes, and this is one small piece. I mean, 2 years ago, I did something for mainstream media, which was an hour-long special on MSNBC looking at healthcare. And I spoke to a woman whose son mysteriously fell ill, and she had like 11 different bills from different places. They went to one hospital, but like the third floor was not in network. So, but the sixth floor was, but the eighth floor wasn't. And so when people get sick in this country, they are slammed with so many bills from different kinds of basically private providers, right? That they didn't even know were out of their network because they're often largely never told. You're never told also how much things cost. If you've ever asked, like, hey, how much is a mammogram? Nobody knows, but you're stuck with the bill no matter what. Just so you know how widespread this is, as Cenk was saying, it's important to mention that 1 in 5 currently 1 in 5 emergency room visits and up to 1 in 6 in-network hospitalizations include at least one surprise out-of-network bill. So patients can be hit with more than $1,200 on average which is very low, for anesthesiologist services, $2,600 for surgical assistance, and $750 for childbirth-related care. And that is, again, we've heard horror stories that are way worse than that. So it is a step in the right direction. After what we've been through in the pandemic, I think we deserve far more, i.e. Medicare for all, if not better. But I don't know, guys, when you're being, attended to if you've had an accident, just make sure you ask for the Sky ambulance. Ask for the chopper, not the regular one. I don't know how you do that, but try to remember.
No, the third floor being in network and the sixth floor not being in network is Kafkaesque. They're driving us out of our minds, and the number one culprit is cable news, New York Times, etc. That looks at that and goes, no, this is how it should be, and you should be surprised with a bill you can't possibly pay, and if you can't pay it, you should die. That's normal. No one else does it that way. I'm here, wakey. I'm gonna try to snap you out of the cult of the mainstream. Literally no other civilized country allows their citizens to die. We are alone. We are the only country. And by the way, we're also the richest country. But nonetheless, we allow our citizens to die if they can't afford cancer treatment. That's insane. That is not normal. And we do these surprise billing, which again, at your worst possible time, and we absolutely drive our citizens to ruin. I feel like we're constantly in that Star Wars scene where the garbage vault is closing in, and that's what corporate rule is. And I'm telling you the reason, and this bill is half good, as we explain, and that's why we're explaining a minor miracle that we got a half good bill out of Congress. And the reason is because you want to leave just a little bit so we're not crushed to death. Because if the vault closes too much, well, we're their cash cows. They're milking us until we're dry, and they don't want to kill the cow, right? So that's why you got this half measure out of Congress, so that we don't have a literal revolution. But that's coming, and I don't want it to come, but the greed of corporate rule is infinite.
I want it to come to the healthcare industry for sure. And speaking of which, I'm gonna just slide right into this next story because it also has to do with our healthcare system that is strained as the surge in Omicron cases is once again putting the strain on hospitals, especially in rural areas or places that already baseline have not as much care. And it's not just the unvaccinated people who are suffering. Obviously, unvaccinated people are largely the ones who are now in hospitals, and in a couple weeks, we're just gonna see how bad it is. But it's people who are awaiting emergency medical procedures that are not COVID related, whose needs are now being put on the back burner. So that applies to an Iowa man named Dale Weeks. So Dale Weeks was a retired superintendent in southern Iowa who went to Mercy One Centerville Medical Center on November 1st after he began to feel ill. Weeks was diagnosed with sepsis, which can be treated, but the hospital had no open bed for him. At the time Weeks was admitted, Iowa was in the midst of a fall surge that resulted in more hospitalizations than at any other point of the pandemic, save for last winter. And he was admitted, but at a hospital 80 miles away, and he was given intravenous antibiotics, but nothing more could be done to treat his infection. Finally, Weeks was taken to the University of Iowa Hospital on November 17th and was another 9 days before he underwent a 17-hour stomach surgery to treat what one surgeon said was the worst infection he'd ever seen, the Register reported. This is according to Vice News. Weeks did die on November 28th at the age of 78. Again, from sepsis, which could have been treated earlier. His family is pissed. His family is saying that it is because of the unvaccinated that are clogging beds. This is from his daughter. They told my dad and his wife right away they had no beds. It's infuriating that people who are not vaccinated are clogging hospitals up. And just for some context, especially in Iowa, as of Tuesday, unvaccinated people made up more than 80% of COVID-19 patients in that state, and 83% of those in the ICU, according to the state health department.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
So look, we're doing what I guess is a controversial poll, but I'm gonna explain why we're doing it and why I voted yes. Should hospitals deny care to anti-vax patients, giving priority to those who have heeded CDC guidelines and taken the vaccine? That's the question, okay? And that's at tyt.com/polls. So it's a real question because hospitals have to prioritize. If there's too many people and not enough beds, you have to make a decision. It's not optional, okay? Now, how do they prioritize today? They prioritize on first come, first serve. And we've come to accept that as normal and fair. But is it? Is it fair? So if a bunch of people who said, I don't give a damn about no scientists and goddamn doctors, I'm not gonna listen to that man, and they didn't vaccinate, and then they got really sick from coronavirus and have to go to the hospital, is it fair that they get priority over someone who has an infection and can die if they're not admitted to the hospital? I don't think that's fair at all. The guy who got the infection didn't ask for it, it's not his fault, whereas the unvaccinated did ask for it. And proudly so. They brag about it all the time. Oh, so what? So what? We're not gonna do it. We're gonna get sick and it's gonna be awesome. It's just like the cold or the flu, who cares? It only kills fat people and old people. That's the thing that they've been saying. We proved it last night on the show.
Yep.
Over and over again. They just keep saying, who cares? It's just fat people. All right, then who cares right back at you? If the hospital is full and if there are unvaccinated coronavirus patients, they should be removed from the hospital to open up a bed for someone who didn't ask to be in the hospital.
We can call them freedom centers. You know, they can just go there and be free. There can be like there could be like Starbucks workers or pretending to be Starbucks workers, and they can like, spit in their faces without masks on. Obviously that person would be wearing, it'll be a whole like play acting of their fantasies, but that's what they wanted. If you wanted to be free, then suffer the consequences for your so-called freedom or your supposed freedom. But meanwhile, again, just like gun control, you're taking the freedom away from all of us to access, oh my God, for the love of God, like to access the small sliver of healthcare that a lot of us already are just clutching onto with like one little finger, right? Like the one time we need any kind of medical attention in this country. We know as Americans, because we get gouged, that we wait and we wait and we don't go to get checkups. But the one time we do, what happens? It's full of unvaccinated people. And meanwhile, the private insurance industry they're making money off these unvaccinated people. That's not free.
Yeah, so I love the phrase that you used. They're constantly talking about their freedom. Great, then the hospital should give you freedom to get the hell out. You're free to go, You didn't believe in doctors, what are you coming to doctors for? 99% of the doctors say you should get vaccinated, but you said you didn't believe in them. So why are you coming to visit a doctor? You are free to go, move along. Now the right wing says, oh, this is outrageous, this is discrimination. No, it's not. You wanted the disease, you got the disease. We tried to help you so you wouldn't get the disease. We tried to save your life and you wouldn't listen to us. And by the way, it's not a ghetto for the anti-vax people. If an anti-vaxxer breaks their leg, they should go to the bottom of the line. No, they should get admitted right away. If they have cancer, they should get admitted right away and they should keep their hospital bed. No question about it. It's not to discriminate against them randomly. We don't hate you, but guys, you have to understand, it's real. Whatever is real, the right wing says you're politicizing it. But that person that we just told you about actually died. And they definitely died because they couldn't go into a hospital because they didn't have enough beds. So, and who were the beds taken by? Definitely the unvaccinated clowns who got coronavirus. So why did he have to die? Because it's not theoretical and it's not a movie. It's an actual human being from Iowa and he's actually dead. And by the way, of course he's not alone. Go ahead, Francesca.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, but he's not alone. And in this fall and now winter surge, I have to read two more stories real quick. So in August, a 46-year-old US Army veteran, Daniel Wilkinson, went to a hospital in Texas suffering from gallstone pancreatitis, a treatable illness. While doctors raced to find a hospital with the capacity to treat him, he was airlifted to a hospital in Houston, but it was too late and he died. So he could, again, basically shopping for hospitals. This next story is even more ridiculous. This is in September. 73-year-old Alabaman Ray DeMoina suffered a cardiac event and died after being turned away from more than 40 ICUs that didn't have the capacity to treat him, his family said. In honor of Ray, please get vaccinated if you have not, in an effort to free up resources for non-COVID related emergencies, DeMoina's family wrote in his obituary. I mean, like, this is like worse than Carrie Bradshaw not calling 911 when Big had a cardiac arrest. I mean, honestly, sorry, I just had to throw that Sex and the City reference.
Leave it to you to lighten up a super serious story, but she should have called. Okay, look,
she should have called.
Last thing here, and look, maybe a lot of progressives will disagree with us because they'll say, no, look, that could lead to other consequences. You don't want to set that precedent at hospitals. It's interesting. So go to tyt.com/polls and tell us what you think. But guys, the last thing here is Ray DeMoina from Alabama is dead. He had a heart attack and 40 hospitals said, no, we're filled with unvaccinated patients. Go die somewhere else. So we're trying to save their lives. It was one thing when you were playing with your own lives. It's another thing when you're playing with other people's lives. And so right wing, I know nothing will ever get through to you unless it's in the form of a conspiracy theory or told to you by a lunatic in right wing media, but I'm gonna try anyway. Do you understand that you're playing with other people's lives and then you're laughing about it and saying, I don't care if your loved ones, your family members, your dads, your moms die? Do you have any idea how indecent and immoral that is? Because it's happening, and it's not just happening in California where I guess you wouldn't mind if people died because you want to own the libs. It's happening in Alabama and Iowa. It's happening to your family, your friends, and your neighbors. So for God's sake, can you have one shred of decency and look to protect yourself as well as others? And I can tell you ahead of time, the answer is going to be a resounding no. They will not do it. Okay, oh damn it, we're so out of time. All right, we gotta go to the break. Oh, you want to do it? You want to do it? All right, come on. All right, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. All right, one last story. Go.
All right. So, okay, from the other side of the world, you thought the walk of shame on Game of Thrones was terrible. This is the police in southern China, in a border town, who have been parading suspects through the streets for breaking COVID protocols and specifically smuggling people across the border. So this is a border town. This is in the city of Xinji in Guangxi province. Take a look at how they are shaming these people who defy the protocols.
老应该能。
So those are trucks full of people who broke COVID protocols being paraded through the streets of southern China. As an example, they're wearing masks, they're hazmat suits, and they've got pictures of themselves on the front. It is insane. Obviously, I just want to give some context because this is very much notes from a different world. But this is a border town, and border towns in China face tremendous pressure to keep coronavirus out of China's stringent zero COVID policy. So their local officials are periodically fired or punished for failing to contain any flare-ups that evade the tough measures. Again, China has a zero COVID protocol, which means one case, an entire city is shut down. Complete opposite reaction. My first thoughts on this are basically, this is what right-wingers in America think that we're doing to them. They like imagine themselves parading through the streets when someone tells them to put on a mask before they can go in a restaurant and then freely eat without a mask on in that same restaurant. Like, this is what they want to happen, right? Like, how much does Marjorie Taylor Greene want to be dressed up in a hazmat suit with like a picture of herself?
Yeah. So I got to congratulate the Chinese government on combining Game of Thrones with Squid Games. So, whoa, I mean, you put the triangle on their face and you got it right there. So this has gone now to the other extreme, and this is absurd. So by the way, the 4 people are the smugglers with their pictures on them, and the rest are guards, and then there's guys with machine guns making sure the crowd doesn't rush them and, I don't know, kill them? I don't know. But part of the reason is because of those 4, the entire city had to go to a lockdown for, I think, several weeks. So people are mad, they don't want to be in lockdown, and they get super mad at the people spreading coronavirus, which in America is considered outrageous. No, spreading coronavirus and endangering other people's lives is #freedom here. So we're one extreme where we think it's cool and a tough guy thing to get other people sick and maybe kill them. And then in China, my God, if on the possibility that there might be COVID, they're gonna parade people around and shame them in medieval ways. And so maybe we find a middle ground. And of course, a lot of countries have. But one more thing that I found amazing about this story is the differences in culture. Man, culture makes all the difference, right? And in Asian cultures, community is emphasized. So people who violate the rights of the community as opposed to individual rights are seen as people who have brought great shame to themselves, to their family, to their community. And in America, we call that, again, freedom. The Chinese culture does not view it that way at all. They think it is horribly disrespectful and indecent to others. And
remember before COVID, wearing like a mask in Asian countries was to protect others from your cold or flu. Like it was a courtesy because there is a sense of collective, as you mentioned. There's also rampant totalitarianism, Cenk. So yes, culture and government.
Yes, absolutely. And so, And Mao, by the way, used to do this shaming at an epic level, and that's why it actually has been banned in China for a long time. And this is in a southern province where it's made a comeback. But the shaming in China was so over the top during the Mao years that even in a Chinese community and country, they were like, no, this is way too much. And the correct answer, if you ask me, for humanity is balance, where we protect ourselves and each other without humiliating other people in the process. All right, we gotta go. We're way past time, but Francesca was too much fun. There was nothing we could do about it. Yes. When we come back, and by the way, everybody check out Bituation Room and Twitchuation Room. Okay, so twitch.tv/TYT for the Twitchuation Room. And when we come back, Alex Jones now is saying he has the dirt on Donald Trump and is threatening to release it. Drums. Come right back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.